the challenges that this generation are facing are hard in a different way. Sometimes I feel like when I hear phrases like that, it's like, wow, they have it so easy. I'm like, no, imagine them growing up in a world where COVID happened, or where like they get all of their news from TikTok, or like it's just a very different world and it's just not apples to apples.
Welcome to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, where we get inside the minds of leaders to harvest great ideas and lessons that help you grow as a difference maker in food and agriculture. I'm your host and curiosity captain, Nicole Ursig. Today's guest is a master at building meaningful relationships that last. She mentors young professionals, collaborates across sectors, and fosters partnerships that advance the future of agriculture. Elizabeth Galbreath serves as the Professional Development Program Manager for BASF and was recently named the 2025 AFA Bridge Builder, recognized for her commitment to strengthening the agriculture industry through connection. From her start on a small Maryland dairy farm to her role shaping the next generation of ag leaders, Elizabeth's journey is proof that relationships are the real competitive advantage. Elizabeth, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited that you're here. What did I miss from your bio that someone might not know about you, either that I didn't tell them or maybe they wouldn't even get from your following you on LinkedIn or something?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. Um, I have a lifelong journey of helping people understand that brown cows don't make chocolate milk. That's important. I grew up a really big Orioles fan and Ravens fan because my grandmother made the jerseys for those teams. And I'm the youngest child, and I feel like that says a lot about me too. So those are probably important things about me.
Do you believe in birth order?
Oh yeah, very much.
Okay, I do too. Yeah, I'm the oldest and it shows.
Yes, and I'm the only girl, and that shows as well. So that's a whole different podcast episode, but I firmly believe in that.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. So, Elizabeth, tell me, how did you find your career journey into this space where it's all about developing and growing people and helping connect folks into the next phase of, honestly, that college to career bridge?
Yes, I am a product of 4-H, so I have to give 4-H all the credit. I remember going to my first 4-H club meeting, and literally, I was such a shy kid that I held my mom's leg, like I was wrapped around her, kind of like a sloth on my mom's leg, and just was terrified of it. And I remember doing my first demonstration or like public speaking thing, and I think I was 7 or 8 years old, on how to fit a dairy cow, which I didn't really know how to do. And I remember getting energy from that and being like, I thought I was supposed to be terrified of these things. So I knew that there was something that 4-H was igniting in me that was really special, and I just continued to foster that and kind of steward that as I went forward. So I had this dream really of being a dairy farmer just like my dad. And then because of 4-H, I really found interest in extension. And so I went to college to be an extension agent. I wanted to be a 4-H youth development agent and wanted to literally be in my home county in Maryland forever. And somewhere along the journey, and it's important to mention too, my dad told me we had about 250, 300 cows at that point. And I told him I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to be a dairy farmer. And he told me, no, there's not really a future for people that like operations the size that we are, for kind of how we do things. And we sold our cows, we moved into agritourism. And so I just say that of, I was told no pretty early on. And then the extension option was really what I wanted to pursue. So I went to college to do that and came to my first AFA Leaders Conference also because of my dad. He found it in the John Deere Furrow magazine one day and was like, hey, leadership stuff in ag. You would like this. You should try to find it. So through my involvement with AFA, I basically found out that you can help people in ag outside of being an extension agent. And I guess I really thought that helping people in this industry was really through extension because I just loved it. And that was my life growing up. So when I had the opportunity to learn more about different careers, I also thought about it. My dad, loved his milk truck driver. He had a great relationship with him. He had still has a great relationship with his seed salesman. Like these are different things that it's like, oh, like that is a beautiful part of the ag industry. So I I took a lot of advice from mentors and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I heard a lot about sales programs as you started out in your career, and the idea of getting paid to learn rather than paying to learn in college, especially when I was paying out of state tuition at Virginia Tech, was very appealing to me. And I really idolized, I think, for my time at AFA, how much the crop science sector had really invested into early career development. So I started looking at those programs and long story short, I ended up in BASF's professional development program, and that was because of AFA. And the leadership there really did a kind thing and asked me for some insight of how to connect with young people in ag when I was there, and kind of brought me into some youth related projects, which was really special. And then I ended up having the chance to work at AFA after that. And so it was kind of a subtle start into it. Like the intention was always there. I didn't expect to go into corporate, but because people believed in me and gave me a little bit of an opportunity, and then AFA certainly gave me an opportunity, and then continue to build that in my next couple of jobs. I think it's just been focused on that completely, but definitely would have never said that I would expect to get here through all of that.
I think a lot of us can say that about our career journeys. I was talking to a class at K-State earlier this week, and I told them, I was like, I never thought I would end up in the animal health industry.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
So,
And same here. When I started to work for an animal health company, I was like, I love cows, but did I expect to work for this company? No. I had no idea the job even existed.
it sounds to me like the human aspect of agriculture. Like you
Yeah.
like cows and crops and all the things. You
Yeah.
have a passion in the same way the rest of us do, but it's the human side for you
Yes.
that really drives you.
Yeah.
Tell me more about why that is and what it is about humans and relationships and growing other people that just even when I say that, I can see your eyes light up.
Yeah.
What is it that drives you?
I think that you can really always learn like the crop stuff, or you can always learn the animal stuff or whatever it is, the technology side of things. But there's just something really beautiful about believing in people and giving them an opportunity to turn into something that they never expected for themselves. So going back to that 4-H story, like if I didn't have 4-H to get me in front of people for the first time to be like, oh, I'm not terrified of this like normal people, I guess, or to have the opportunity to work on a record book and take care of something that was not me. Like have that. My first cow's name was Ethel. I talk about her all the time. But like I just learned to take care of something outside of myself, and I think learning from a really early age that that is where the magic of life happens when it's outside of yourself and it's in service to something bigger than you. And so I love giving people the opportunities that I had to become a better version of myself when I was younger and continue to have people pour into me and do that. So I just think that's what life is about. I don't think that life is necessarily about all the technical skills we have. Certainly that's important, right? But I just think that the magic is in how do you make people's lives better, but how do you also make yourself better? That's something I've gotten really passionate about too, is leadership isn't just about making other people better, but you have to show up for you and take care of you before you can do that for other people. So I think that's a season of life I'm in, of kind of marrying those two. But I think that also is for hopeful and helpful, I would say, for the people that are coming up, I guess, behind my generation is they're more aware of that. But I never want people in ag to feel so overwhelmed by the change in the industry, or, the science is really hard to understand. Like people, you can do it.
Yeah.
You just have to have somebody to believe in you, kind of help coach you. And that's cool that I get to be one of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too the science and technical part of agriculture, which I love that piece of it. It like lights me up to learn about it.
Yeah.
You're right. There can be a point where you become an expert
Yeah.
in the science and the technology and the application of something, or even in the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
But I don't know that any of us ever fully master the human side.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's all like you
Yes.
always have to grow and
Yeah.
evolve and change, and there's always another piece to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like you can get to a point where you're like, yeah, I know a lot of
Yeah.
and there are, and I love smart people like that, but the self-development and the service of other people, like that job is never done.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's probably why that's a beautiful way to say it. I think that's probably why I get so excited about it, is I just always think I can be better, and I look at everything as how do we learn from this scenario, even if it's a difficult conversation or it's just like, wow, I really messed up when I did that. It's just it's really cool to know that the job is never done in that area of life. So I love how you said that.
So, what are you learning about in leadership right now for yourself?
Oh, loaded question as well. Again, I'll touch on this. I've become a bit of a nerd, especially in the last year or so, about what it means to show up well yourself and emotional regulation, nervous system regulation. I just grew up being such a people pleaser that I never understood how I felt internally. Like I would just go, I would say yes, I wouldn't pause, I would always do things for other people. And I'd be clear, like that has benefited me a lot in my life, and I think given me a lot of opportunity, but also credibility of being there for other people. However, there are some things that just when you go, when you hit either burnout or you hit a place that you are just doing things you don't even know who you are anymore. And I think there are a bit of seasons in my life that, if I'm honest, like I lost control of really knowing where my compass was. And I've come back to that and I feel better than ever in it. And some of it comes down to literally just remembering to like do a couple of minutes a day where you don't think about anything. You can call that mindfulness meditation if you want to. That's kind of how I phrase it, but sometimes that feels cheesy to people. But that, or to going on walks every day and like literally being like, what do I feel in my body right now? Like, oh, my stomach kind of hurts. What's going on there? I just never listened to that. And so I'm realizing that I have to really be aware of myself and take care of myself before I can do that for other people. And I just took a new role at BASF where I now manage a lot of people who are early in their careers. And I don't think there's anything more important than knowing yourself before you step into a scenario. And so I want to model that for them. And I also, the other thing that I'm learning is, even though that I think I'm seeing a trend in in young people right now, because I work directly with early career folks, that there's a lot of expectations of like, you know, industry is hard to understand, but expectations of like, okay, well, I want this in a job, flexibility. I want, um, this salary, this job title, pretty much out of school. And for me, what I'm learning about leadership outside of the knowing myself thing is also how important it is to set expectations early and to have those conversations of like, hey, I love that goal. I love that for you. But also, even my time here at AFA Leaders Conference this weekend, I have been talking a lot about the first few years of your career is about building credibility and experience. And so I really want to be a person that is a transparent example or voice within like what industry really looks like. But I am learning that those conversations earlier and earlier in college, even before they get a job, especially when they start a job, of hey, like I love those goals, have those goals, but you have to say it out loud. Like you can't just say you get a year into your job and you have a performance review and it's like, well, I feel like I deserve a raise. Well, we never talked about what was actually raise worthy or like promotion worthy, right? So I think having those conversations early on and setting expectations or agreements is really crucial to just having a good dynamic with the people in your team.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that leads me to a question I'm curious, since you get to work with such early career people, what do leaders today need to do differently to be able to lead this group of people that are coming in? Because you're right, they come in with like, they have some expectations that are different than probably you and I had when we went into the
Mm-hmm.
workplace. And I love that they're good at setting boundaries or
Yes.
asking, like, they are so much good at things that at least I can say I wasn't when I first started.
Same here.
And
Yeah.
also, it can be jarring when you're in a leadership role and you're like, you're just a kid and you have a lot to learn. So how do we as like leaders of this generation be better serve them?
I think it is so important that everyone takes a second and just level sets. We all want the same things. We all want trust. We want transparency. We want stability in a job. Like some of those rankings for each person go differently, but I've done some work in this and did some internal research at my last company. And no matter what age range you're in, you want those things. It's just how you describe it or how you show it comes up differently, right? So we're not all different is what I'm trying to say. And I think so uh, starting with that and then also trying to build a personal relationship with people outside of work, I always think is important because it's really easy to be like, well, they don't understand what it's like. I remember at my previous company, the benefits changed and the vacation policy changed that there were, more days off at the start of your career. And some of the people that have been there longer were really upset because wow, we've worked 30 years to get that much time off, right? Totally valid, but also somebody that was earlier in my career was like, thank you so much for this time off, right? And I can absolutely see why there's frustration there. But again, we both probably want that benefit, but we also both want to work for a good company and understand that that comes with a lot of hard work, right? And I use that example because I think sometimes it's really easy to put each other at the other end of the spectrum when in reality you're just a lot closer than you think. So building those personal relationships is really important, and understanding that we want the same things is key. The other thought that I have related to just leading them is they want to know the why behind things. And so I really, whenever I encourage somebody, whether it's with an intern or an early career professional, you can absolutely always ask them to do things, but always explain the greater context of why this work matters. Like they don't just want to do things to do things. They will do things that they have to. We all do. And sometimes maybe they need some affirmation of like, hey, this is important, even though this is making copies of something, whatever. But explain the importance of like, okay, you printing these copies, this is a really silly example, but you printing these copies means that everybody is prepared at the start of the meeting and it looks like we're ready to go and they have a great experience, right? Like that's just take the time to explain that. And I just think that this generation is, which is amazing, they just want to always know that what they're doing matters. So if you can just instill that culture on your team, regardless of generation, I think that that's going to go a really long way and making them just feel like obviously I don't need to make all of the decisions, but continuously, regardless again of generation, just making them feel like their voice is heard and you ask them for their opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I think employee engagement and is so simple. It's such simple concepts, and we make it so complicated.
Yes.
And look, humans are complicated in general, but like even what you said, all of us want to know that our work matters.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is someone saying like, "Hey, what you are doing right now, here's the what that outcome is creating and here's why it matters." And that gives someone so much more like ownership and excitement about what may feel like a mundane task.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And something I just thought of when you were talking, a little bit different, but something I've noticed too is I think this world is changing so fast too, and this goes back to every employee, but it's something I'm noticing when it comes to building trust in early career folks is the way that I talk to my team about it is like truth changes every day in the industry or in corporate America or your organization. Like things are just changing all the time. And so if I share with them like this decision was made today and then they get an email tomorrow, hey, budget cuts or whatever, you can't do that anymore. Whenever I like meet with them for the first time, I try to help them understand like, hey, I just want you to know in this fast paced environment, you will see things change, but I will always be upfront with you when I know that. And I think that hopefully, I mean, I'm pretty new into it, but hopefully build some credibility. But I do think that also matters a lot when it comes to working with early career folks because they don't know. If you don't tell them along the process, you don't need to update them on every step, right? However, um, you're not going to build trust with them if they don't feel like you are being forthcoming with information. Um, in some cases, it's fine for them to come to you and ask those questions, but sometimes you have to show initiative too and not just be passive with that.
What was true yesterday is maybe different than what's true today, whether it's
Mhm.
market shifts or the darn weather
Yeah.
or a company corporate decision.
Yeah, our tractor literally not working. Like yesterday, we had a great plan, and today we don't. It's just how it goes.
Something else you said too, I really connected with me. We were kind of talking about generational changes, but like we all want the same thing. And last night, as we were talking so much about bridge building and that bridge builder poem, and the whole point of building bridges is making it easier for other people who come behind you.
Yep.
And when we think about leading younger people who are getting more things earlier than maybe we got in our careers or us getting it than the people above us. And I can understand how frustrating that is of like, well, we had to earn it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you did. And you earned it for you. And you also ended up earning it for us and for those people. And so, yeah, it can be frustrating that it was harder for you, but isn't it so amazing that it's now easier for other people?
Yes. And the challenges that this generation are facing are hard in a different way. Like sometimes I feel like when I hear phrases like that, it's like, wow, they have it so easy. I'm like, no, imagine them growing up in a world where COVID happened or where like they get all of their news from TikTok or like it's just a very different world. And so it's just not apples to apples. And so I love that you said that. And I do think it's important that people realize that, hey, their challenges are they might not be the Great Depression or whatever it was, but they're still pretty significant and they absolutely change how they see the world. And if it's not days off, it's something else that's harder for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important to think about of just where we all have struggles. They're just going to look different in different contexts.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Elizabeth, you are our Bridge Builder Award winner. I'm curious, what does bridge building mean and look like for you?
you just really said it, and what you just talked about. I really think about the um, paving a way for people to have it easier who come after you. And sometimes it comes through advocating for other people. Sometimes that means connecting other people to opportunities to other humans as well. Um, and sometimes that means just sharing your story honestly. And I think I try to do that. And even this conversation is an example of that. I don't think that. Um, I think it's really about like just letting your light shine in whatever capacity that looks like. And for me, that comes through a lot of speaking and writing and working with people in my working world. Um, but for other people, it's starting their own business, or it's being a first generation farmer, or it's being first generation college student, whatever. Like it's paving a path that maybe was not easy for you, or definitely was not easy for you based on the poem, and then trying to make it easier for someone else to come behind you and doing that. And I think part of the reason that that poem resonates with me too is because I just, as I've talked about before, there's so many people who did that for me. Even if it was just like, hey, Elizabeth, I think that you should look into this. Even again, my dad with that John Deere magazine, like just an example of someone being like, hey, I didn't have that opportunity, Elizabeth, when I was in college. You would really like that. You should consider that. And look where I am now.
Has that always come easy for you?
I mean, I was really shy as a kid, like I talked about. So probably not in that capacity. I would say I don't know what shifted. I would say I actually really struggled in a lot of ways growing up. 4-H was like the place that I felt really safe. So I talk about that all the time. But for the most part, once I got to maybe high school, I started like 4-H camp was kind of the mechanism where I started doing that of really encouraging people at that summer camp and helping them like feel really confident in who they are, being goofy and like wearing really wild clothes and singing out the top of your lungs, right? That's where I think I got like a lot of my confidence. So I say that that was being a camp counselor and pouring into that group of youth was really pivotal for me, and I think it ignited that in me. And there's probably a lot of people that relate to summer camp being impactful, but that's really my story. I would say once I got to college, I felt like I had a really awesome. I went to an all girls Catholic high school, and um, I was really nervous about. I mean, there's stereotypes with that, but I was nervous about it for several reasons, particularly being the only ag kid. And I grew up almost an hour away from where I went to high school. And I was like, I'm gonna be like the smelly dairy kid that comes in and they're gonna be like, what is this girl doing? Right. So I think me being different in high school was terrifying but exciting because the more I told people about me, the more people gravitated to me for being who I really was. And they were like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about cows. Can you tell me about cows? They grew up a lot in the suburbs, kind of of Baltimore, so I really enjoyed that. And I started being like an advocate for the industry, ended up becoming a dairy princess. And there were just so many things. I was like, oh, being myself is really actually a way people gravitate to me, which was really special. And so when I went to that Catholic all girls high school, I ended up going to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has a great agriculture school. And I was like so ready. I was like, I'm going to join all the clubs. I'm going to do all the ag stuff, right? Because I didn't have that chance in my school, in high school. So I say this because when I went to college, I think I was building up a skill set in high school to I came over some hardship, I would say, in middle school, and then got to high school, grew that confidence, and then in college I was ready to deploy it. And then I just went and did that and got really connected to student government, to different organizations in the College of Ag, and really throughout the whole university. And so I would say I just got really excited about everything. And I started talking to people and was like, oh my gosh, you should meet this person. And I focused so much on my relationships in college. And it just felt like that's a beautiful place and time to do it in your life, right? Because everybody's close. So I would say since then, and then AFA, where so many people just kind of believed in me and they're like, hey, you should meet this person. It just hasn't felt like it's ever been a strategy. It just kind of has happened. And that's really what has made a difference in my life. So it's what I did for other people. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it.
I like what you said of like it's not a strategy, it's more of you being who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that that is so special because even in AFA we talk a lot about like your network as a personal asset
Yeah.
and thinking about and being intentional with building your network and building those relationships. But it can feel like a manipulative leadership strategy of I need to make connections, I need to, get the business card, I need that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I think what I'm hearing you say, and we've done a few of these this week, so my brain is swimming in all of the conversations that we've gotten to have, is the best way to actually build those relationships is knowing yourself and being your authentic self.
Yep.
And then you can become a magnet for them.
100%. But I guess, yes, and to that, I would say it's not going to be easy to, like, you're going to have to put yourself out there. Sometimes it's not going to be a natural connection. I talk all the time. I'm really passionate about helping people know when to follow up and when, networking is really not about what you can get from other people. It is about just an authentic relationship. And I really believe in that. And so I say that because when it's kind of like dating, like, you're just going to have to put yourself out there and get rejected sometimes, and if it's not a two-way street, then the relationship doesn't move forward. Like, that's just what a relationship is, right? But I say that just because, yes, it's all about being your authentic self. It's going to hurt sometimes. Like, you're going to have to grow by putting yourself out there and, like, hello, Nicole, here is my business card. It's going to be really hard. And even people I really look up to who are at AFA Leaders Conference, it is so uncomfortable, even for me now that I've known them for 10 years, to, like, walk up to them because I just respect them and appreciate them and admire them so much, to be like, hey, I would love to catch up with you. That's still hard for me. Like, I still have imposter syndrome of, like, am I worthy of this time that you would spend with me? So I just want to acknowledge that, of, like, it's not ever you master it, even if you know the people for a while. Um, but I do agree that it's absolutely about being who you are.
Well, and I love that you said that because, yes, there is always, I think, pain to relationships,
Oh, yeah.
even in a like some of the best relationships, if you can think of in your life, like we've all had painful moments in
Yeah.
them and scary moments where you had to put yourself out there, but you can't get to those like really good, meaningful relationships unless you're willing to endure some of the pain.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. And that's where, what's the phrase about the diamonds, like, the hard seasons make the best, or something.
Diamonds are made under pressure,
Yeah,
extreme
yeah.
pressure.
I love that I could remember that phrase because that's literally a fact. So great. Love my brain being on right now.
I'm curious, Elizabeth, what's the scariest part of leadership for you?
That is a scary question in and itself. The scariest part, it is probably taking humility and accountability to another level. I think the more, I guess, the further along I get in my career, the more that my decisions and my actions impact other people. And I've always thought that I was humble, and even saying that makes me feel like I'm not humble. But I've always felt like I've had humility, and that part of that comes back to my faith. Um, but there's a different level of ownership that you have to take as you continue to grow yourself and grow in your career. And I when I even, I used to freak out over, like, typos. I used to be such a perfectionist that, I mean, I got feedback from multiple managers of, like, Elizabeth, 80% is fine. Like, done, like, good enough is good, and done is good, right? And that was, like, the biggest thing I lost sleep over. And now it's like, oh my gosh, these people, like, their livelihoods are impacted by how I decide to show up. Like, the future of their career, they could say that I am so glad I started my career with Elizabeth as my boss. Or they could be like, wow, I learned a lot about what not to do. Or a mix, right? Probably more realistic to be a mix. But I think it's really scary because it just comes with a lot of responsibility in a way that excites me at the same time. But it's scary when I also feel a little bit like the world feels, I mean, regardless of the season of society that we're in, but the world feels out of control in a lot of ways. And as I mentioned earlier, truth changes all the time. And I work for a really large organization, and there are decisions that are made way above me that impact people that I directly support. And it can be really hard when that doesn't feel like it aligns well with them, and try and help them understand the good in it, but also holding space for them and being like, hey, this sucks right now, let's move through it together. So all of that wrapped into it, of the accountability and the ownership for that, is really important to do in a really intentional way. But sometimes you get just curveballs that you can't even prepare for.
So, for you, how do you manage through knowing that so much is out of your control? And what do you focus on that you either feel like you can control or that gives you peace of like, I have chaos all around me and like I'm still going to go my own way?
It probably depends on the day and the challenge. The biggest things that I feel like I can control is my attitude. So if something hard happens, I even did this when I was on staff with AFA. We had to share with the student advisory team that I managed that we were moving to a COVID environment in 2020, or excuse me, I mean, it was COVID. Everything was a COVID environment. We were moving to an online format for Leaders Conference, which the sole purpose of the student advisors was for them to put on this event, right? And for us to go virtual was really, really challenging. I remember having that conversation with them and saying, this really stinks right now. And you're allowed to be sad. We're going to give it a couple weeks. You get all the feelings out, do all of that. And after this date, like I gave them the date, I was like, we're going to move forward and make this the best it can be. Because in reality, your job is really still to impact students. You can still do that because we're still showing up for them at a time that people are not following through on having events. They're just saying, we're not doing virtual, we're not doing in person. We'll see you next year. We're still doing it and we're creating an opportunity for students. So I would say continuously reminding yourself the why, and that is something that's really important. Allowing space for it to be for you to react to it, and those are really probably important parts. The start with why concept is huge for me, and I know that that just feels like a personal development. Everybody says it, but it's really important. I mean, the why is really critical to everything. When other things feel outside of that example, when things feel out of control, I would say what I try to do is literally just think about the next thing that I can do. And for me, sometimes that's making a to-do list. Sometimes that is I just need to call somebody and vent or writing down my questions. Um, I think it's really important in moments where it feels like you don't know what's going on is to never assume. And so if you start to get down to black and white thinking of like, well, they said that I can't go to this, that means they hate me, or like whatever it is, like that. If you just have to challenge your thinking. And I love Dr. John Deloney. He talks a lot about mindfulness is the space between something happening to you and what you decide to do next. And I used to be really bad about creating any space. And so now what I try to do is like think about the questions I have, or again, I'm like, oh well, Elizabeth, you're catastrophizing right now. You're making this the worst case scenario it possibly could be. Breathe. Take 5 sec, like take 5 minutes. I mean, it could be 5 seconds in this scenario, but try and take a lap around wherever you are or whatever, and then reset. And I think writing down questions can be really helpful for me because it's just like, okay, I know that I need to probably not come into it attacking. Like, what good comes out of a conversation when you're like, this is exactly what you did. Okay, cool. Where do I go from there? Yeah. So if you can just, hey, can you help me understand this when you said this, whatever. So questions, the next right step. Again, sometimes it's just a to-do list of other things that I can focus on, but um, honestly, just remembering to breathe and saying you don't have to have it figured out right now, and trying to remember your bigger picture is huge.
I love that reminder. Even what you said about like I can control my attitude. I have had to learn that that space that you're talking about creating between whatever has happened that's out of my control and what happens next is critical because we're emotional beings and
Yes.
sometimes like you got to feel your feels
Yes.
and like I need to think about this. I need to take a second. And the most productive thing for me to do right now is going to be to go on a walk
Yep.
and step away from
Yep.
this and knowing that like whether that's going on a walk or writing down the questions or making a to-do list or heck taking some time and resting, like learning that that part is productive and
Yes.
is part of the
Yep.
process. And I think so often we're like, this thing happened, now I have to figure out what
Yep.
I got to just start doing.
Yep.
And it's almost like you got to leave this window here
Yep.
and then you can do.
And what a powerful thing, like as a leader too, to say I don't have all the answers right now. Like, don't say I am falling apart.
That's not helpful to anyone.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
creates more
yeah,
chaos.
yeah, yes, and also probably makes you internally shut down worse too. But if you could say I don't have all the details yet, I will get back to you as soon as I can. I think that also says a lot because I don't think as a leader I ever or looking up to people around me and other leaders, I don't ever expect them to have all the answers. Certainly, I want some clarity from them, but I think it's just a really important thing to admit when you don't know everything, but to have some sort of like I have confidence that we'll get through it. That's really important, like the attitude to give, but to say it out loud in a way of like, okay, I don't actually know, but we'll figure it out is really important.
Do you think we're in a leadership culture change right now? And I say that I think where I'm going to speak from my own personal standpoint, but I think even one of the speakers that we listened to earlier this week, Jason, talked about this, of like this perception of what a successful leader looks like, maybe like very charismatic, very powerful, very like decisive and knows what to do and directive. And what I am hearing a lot of leaders talk about today is a shift from that type of persona and more empathetic and human oriented, and let's ask questions, let's think differently, let's pause. Do you think we're in a leadership culture change of like either what is working or what is going to work?
I think we're in a change of everything right now. I don't feel scared, but I feel like I don't have certainty in most things right now. And I think ag is part of it. And this could be probably another 13 podcast episodes, but the leadership in ag itself is changing a huge amount. I mean, I think of most highest like leaders that we have leading the biggest companies and organizations that we see in the next 10 to 15 years. This is my statistic and no one else's, so this could be absolutely completely wrong. But based on my personal network, I would assume in the next 10 to 15 years, a lot of them are going to retire. I mean, like probably around half, right? Again, Elizabeth statistic, no one quote me on that. And so even within the next 5, like it probably is closer than the 10 to 15. So I just say that in the sense of I've been thinking a lot about the ag industry and leadership overall. But yeah, I think people are more aware than ever that who you are and how you show up is more important than what you do. I think that's really, really hard in the systems that we have created and how things are um, rewarded or just how things are sought after. But I actually, the conversation with Jason or the way that he framed it of success, I've been talking a lot about that with people, and I think it's actually important to even give that to high schoolers because I feel like they just have the model of I should take a job out of high school or college that is what other people think that I should do, and I just don't think they have the internal compass. And so my something that I've been working on personally is helping younger people do that. But I would agree that there is a shift in leadership, and I think people are finally, I say this from my perception as well, people are finally understanding that who you are at work is also who you are in life and vice versa. And I think we're finally realizing that we're not going to put up with a lack of integrity in one of those areas of life and at work or excuse me, at work and at home. And I love that we're challenging that because the question I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. He asked the question a lot of do we reward people with that we have low trust with, but they're really high performers, or vice versa? Like, what's more important? And that's a hard question. Like, if somebody's a really great performer, bringing a lot of sales or whatever, but people can't stand being around them, and they talk poorly about people behind their backs, or they start drama, or whatever it is, that's not something that you want to perpetuate throughout the rest of your team. But at what point in an economy like this or whatever do you need that? So I would say we're definitely looking at things differently. How it shakes out, I have no idea, but I'm fascinated. I just think from the psychological standpoint of I'm really excited that we're really seeing people as people. And I think as someone that put a lot of my identity in my career, I'm really proud of the progress that I've made on my life personally, but it's helping me so much professionally. And I just want that for other people to be like, I can get better in my life, and that can impact every area of my life. It doesn't just have to be I'm focusing on work. I think there's always going to be room for both of those segments, but I would say absolutely, and it excites me because something I've noticed a lot in early career professionals, and again that's where my experience is, but it's probably true of other age groups. This concept I call it embracing the gray. This is what I think students need so much work on in college. Problem solving, and I think there's always a syllabus for a student in school. Well, most professors will give a syllabus in school of like, here are your due dates, your project dates, your presentations, or whatever. And when you get to the real world, it's pretty fluid, and it's a never ending. Like we're not on a semester basis. We're just going. It could be quarterly or whatever, but in reality, it's just perpetual. And I call it embracing the gray because college feels very black and white to them, and then they get into this world where I think industry is very gray. And so you need to embrace it and not be scared of it. And high achievers like myself and probably you, we wanted to be successful. We wanted to be high achieving.
And we want to know what winning looks like and what do
Yes,
I need to do to win?
correct. Amen. And like right away, and we want to do it. But I started my career in sales and getting into a territory where someone wasn't telling me what to do every day. And, it felt lonely. And I've never been responsible for hitting a budget number before. Like, that is hard stuff. And I don't think anybody, even if you're in an office setting, like, people don't prepare you for how much your manager is not going to hold your hand. So I say this of the embracing the gray is really important. And I feel like people are finally understanding that the world is much more nuanced than we've made it out to be. And that goes along with the humanity in the workplace. And I'm excited about that. And it's going to be really interesting to see how things evolve. But I think those two things kind of go together. We don't really know anything right now. Everything just kind of feels new. And that's a really cool opportunity to see how people like embrace being a human.
Well, and I love one of the things you said is I don't have certainty in anything right now. And that feels so like I feel like that's so accurate, whether it's like markets or what the weather's going to be like tomorrow or, what are we doing societally? And I think in the past we've looked to leaders, those people who look and feel certain and confident and I know what's going to happen. And today I almost would maybe be more skeptical of that versus like, you know what, I don't know, but here's who I am as a person. And like, here's my integrity and here's my character. And no matter what changes, that's not going to change. And that gives some stability, I would say in any leadership environment, instead of like, the way, what's going to happen. I know who you are and who you're going to be who you say you are. And I can trust that no matter what outside things change.
100%. And this is the purpose that we're headed towards. Like, I would hope that any leader, even when they say that, they remind you of like the end goal is still the same. Because those two things together still make you feel hopeful and confident that you can move forward. But yeah, absolutely, I am with you. If somebody said, "I know what today looks like," do you? I'm not sure. I think the news is always just feels it's like what's going on, and again, even in our own lives too, of just things just feel very different all the time.
Okay, Elizabeth, this has been a wonderful conversation. We are going to move into our rapid fire segment where you're going to try to give short answers and I'm going to try not to ask follow-up questions.
Okay.
So, what is your go-to question when meeting someone new?
If there was a movie about your life, who would play you?
Okay, I try not to ask follow-up questions. Who would play Elizabeth?
I would want it to be Tina Fey, and I would want Amy Poehler to be in it as well.
Oh, love that. Love that. Who is someone in agriculture that inspires your approach to connection?
I'm trying not to be cheesy with an answer, so let me think of. I feel like this needs to be like a half a face of a lot of different people. Man, you stumped me on this one. We'll go with Russ Weathers, and part of what I love about Russ is that it, he doesn't always ask you a question. He just kind of holds space for things, and he does ask pretty targeted follow-up questions, which is great. But I'm trying to get better about individually connecting with people, being present in the moment, and not just forcing a conversation. I'm really good about asking questions, but sometimes it's fun just to see what people ask when you hold space for them. That's not a short answer, but hopefully that I just I think that is an important thing.
What is one relationship building green flag and what's a red flag?
As a recruiter, I'll take maybe that lens on this. A relationship building red flag is when someone makes it very much about what you can give them and not about it being like an organic conversation or connection. So they'll just say, tell me about your company. What jobs do you have? And that's it. A green flag is when someone talks a little bit more about you and asks questions. So it could be the movie question. It could be, how did you get here? Like, is this your first AFA Leaders Conference or whatever? But questions for sure would be green flag. Um, and then what can I do for you is red flag. And only following up for sure when it's like, there are some people I only hear from when they need something, when it's a resume or a recommendation or a connection, and that just doesn't feel very good.
What is a leadership book or podcast or tool that that's like your go-to recommendation for people?
The most recent one that has really helped me Soundtracks by John Acuff is one that I really like, and it's about the stories that we tell ourselves and how that manifests into reality. I love that because mindset is everything.
Okay, and now we are going to switch into hot takes. At AFA, we love hot takes, so unconventional, bold opinions. So, Elizabeth, what is a hot take you have about leadership or the future of agriculture?
I don't know if this would be considered a hot take, but it feels like a hot take. I grew up in a time where the industry felt very, it's how we've always done it. And that's not acceptable anymore. And I'm seeing that come out in how people are making decisions of really proving that they need ROI to back up every financial decision, whether that's on the farm or an organization giving to someone like AFA. That's really crucial. And it's also what we talked about earlier, people having integrity as a leader. And I just feel like agriculture absolutely needs to stay celebrating our heritage and our tradition, but that's going to look different in the future. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm excited about it. As someone that grew up on a farm, I want to preserve like the life that I always grew up with because that was so special, and I'm so grateful for how I grew up. However, that's not reality. And I could speak to the dairy industry. Dairy is way different now than when my family sold our cows in the 2000s. And if that's just one small example of how this industry is evolving and continues to evolve, it's definitely intimidating because I just feel like we've always cherished how things have been, but it's going to be different, and I don't know what that looks like. But buckle up, folks. We're in for a ride. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting. But I just we can't settle for that's always how we've always done it.
Love that take, Elizabeth. At AFA, we're all about building bridges. Where can people connect more with you?
So I am really active on LinkedIn, and Elizabeth Galbreath is my name. So find me on LinkedIn. And I would say I have a website, elizabethgalbreath.com. So Galbreath is how you spell my last name. So find me there. I have a blog, and yeah, love to connect with people there and help them with whatever they're thinking about. I try to be really transparent about the experience as a recruiter or leadership and the stuff that we're talking about. So connect with me on there.
Awesome. Well, go connect with Elizabeth. Any final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
I think I would just say I want to recognize that at any stage in your career, this is because I work with early career professionals. I feel like it's really normal for people to think everyone has it figured out. And the more that I've spent with people who are further into their career, so no matter how old someone is or experienced they are listening to this, it's okay to not have it figured out. And I think this is more of a and also an homage to the time period that we're in. I just felt like every time that I talked to somebody that if they were good at their job or they had more knowledge than me, that they knew what they were doing. They had a 5-year plan. They had it mapped out. And I am I'm in the process right now of relocating in the next week across country, and I have no plans once I get there. And that is so different for me, but I'm so excited about that. And I share that just because we don't always have to have it mapped out, and having it quote unquote figured out is not the goal, but behaving in a way that we're proud of as we're pursuing impacting others and what we really care about is what's most important. And I just want to say to everybody, don't worry about how it appears on the outside if you're pursuing what you really care about. That's what matters. You're going to have some imposter syndrome. You're definitely not going to feel like you have it all together, but that's part of the process. And I just want people to lean into that rather than be ashamed of it because it's very normal. And the more that we let it fester inside, it's just going to eat us up. So embrace it and run with it.
Love that. Thank you, Elizabeth. This has been so fun. I have loved learning and getting to chat with you. And I know our listeners, obviously, there's so many great takeaways and nuggets from this podcast as well. So I want to say thank you for being on the Cultivating Leaders podcast, and also congratulations on being recognized as the AFA Bridge Builder. Thanks for listening to the Cultivating Leaders podcast, brought to you by Agriculture Future of America. If you've been here before, you know we value feedback as a gift. Please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.